The busy streets of Old Town bustled with shoppers, laughter, and the clanging of tram bells, but beneath that lively facade lay a different rhythm, a quieter, muted thrum that belonged only to the forgotten souls who roamed among them. Nestled in the corner of Maple and Third, wrapped in a threadbare blanket, sat Jonah, a man whose unkempt beard and worn clothes told tales of hardships both tangible and invisible. Once a devoted baker, Jonah had thrived amid the warmth of bread and the scent of cinnamon rolls. But a series of unfortunate events, a devastating fire that consumed his shop, a harsh winter, and lingering medical bills, had unceremoniously knocked him to the ground, leaving him to beg for coins on the very streets he used to feed with crumbs of happiness. Jonah was a proud man at heart, even in despair. He valued kindness above all, often sharing whatever little he managed to collect with others in need. The thin wallet clasped to his side hardly ever swelled with more than a few crumpled bills. Yet, every Sunday, when he received the small stipend from the local church, he would set aside a portion to buy food for the stray cats that slinked through the alleyways or to purchase a warm meal for another beggar like him. Each day, Jonah would give a piece of himself, as if he hoped that the universe was paying attention, waiting to balance the scales of his misfortune. It was on one such crisp autumn afternoon that fate, with its peculiar timing, brought an unusual guest his way. As the sun dipped low in the sky, painting the horizon in shades of gold and amber, he heard the echo of frantic weeping near him. Jonah squinted against the light, peering out from beneath his blanket. There, standing at the foot of his makeshift perch, was a tiny boy, no older than 6. His cheeks were streaked with dirt, and his eyes were a wide pool of fear. "What's wrong, little one?" Jonah asked softly, instinctively pulling the corners of his blanket tighter around as if to shield the child from the chill of the day and from the weight of anguish that seemed to cling to him. "I can't find my mommy." The boy's voice trembled as he clutched a small, tattered teddy bear to his chest. "She said to wait by the fountain, but I couldn't see her anywhere." Jonah's heart twisted, a flutter of memories filled with his own lost loved ones swam through his mind, and he felt an urgent stirring of compassion. In that moment, he knew that despite his own struggles, he could not turn away from this boy. "All right, I'll help you," Jonah said, squaring his shoulders. The boy's garish blue eyes sparkled with hope, and together they rose like two lost ships drawn by the same tide. Jonah took the child's hand, feeling the fragility of the small fingers wrap around his own calloused palm. He looked around the busy market square, where people bustled by, unaware of the turmoil just beneath their noses. "What's your name?" he asked as they began to wander toward fountain. "Ethan," the boy sniffled, his voice barely above a whisper. "And I live around here with my mommy. We were shopping, but then I lost her." "Ethan, you've got to remind me of her face. What does she look like?" Jonah pressed, desperation slicing through his chest. "What was she wearing?" The boy frowned, brows knitted in thought. "A blue coat and a red scarf," he finally said. "And her hair. It's really, really long, like this." Ethan held his small hand away from his chest, mimicking a wave of hair that surely cascaded beneath his chin. They passed stalls selling vibrant oranges and fragrant spices, navigating through throngs of shoppers until they reached the fountain, where the water danced and glimmered under the golden afternoon light. Jonah scanned the crowd, lingering on each woman in a blue coat, hoping they would be the answer they were seeking. "I'll take care of you until we find her," Jonah promised, kneeling to meet Ethan's gaze. "Uriel know that?" "I'm scared," Ethan replied quietly, squeezing the teddy bear tighter. "Fear is just a feeling, but kindness is real. And you, my friend, are showing the biggest kind of courage by asking for help." Jonah smiled, feeling warmth spreading through him as he thought about how one small act of kindness could ripple like waves across an ocean. As they stood together, 3 passers-by paused to watch Jonah, the beggar, interacting with the child. Initially judgmental glances turned to softening expressions as they witnessed the budding bond between the two, a man who had lost everything and a child seeking security. Jonah felt a flicker of kinship with Ethan, a sprinkle of hope, as the child reflected all that innocence could bring to a world rife with struggles. And then, from the thrumming sea of voices and chatter, a distressed voice rang out, cutting through the din, "Ethan! Where are you?" Ethan's face lit up, and he let go of Jonah's hand, rushing towards her blue coat billowing around her like a protective aura. She knelt down, clasping him in an embrace, tears of relief cascading down her cheeks. As Jonah stepped back, a wave of bittersweet emotion washed over him. He lingered in that moment, watching the reunion, a gentle whisper of satisfaction breaking through the cold of his own life. In the midst of his own trials, he had found purpose, if only for an afternoon. And perhaps, he mused, if he could lend a hand to one small child on the cusp of loss, then surely there was a thread connected to something greater awaiting him. "Thank you," the mother said, turning to Jonah as she stood, her heart still racing. Jonah nodded, feeling an unexpected swell of elation as he dipped his head in humility. "Take good care of him," he managed to whisper, his voice choked with emotion. As Ethan waved goodbye, with tears still glimmering in his eyes, Jonah returned to his spot beneath the blanket, feeling a warmth in his heart that dead material wealth. For in that fleeting, ordinary moment, he understood, kindness could indeed birth a flicker of hope, even if only for a beggar like him. And that was worth everything. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows, the city wrapped itself in the promise of twilight. And out of the corners of Jonah's mind, a flicker of possibility began to ignite, a faint glimmer that perhaps, just perhaps, change was on the horizon, waiting to bloom like the flowers that would soon welcome spring. The future would hold secrets beyond his imagination, but the kindness he had shared today would be the candle lighting his way. The sun dipped behind the buildings of Maplewood, giving way to a sky adorned in shades of pink and lavender. Jonah's heart felt lighter, buoyed by the warmth he'd shared with Ethan and his mother. The memory of their embrace flickered in his mind, a vivid reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness could create ripples of joy that reached what one might expect. Repeating his ordinary routine for years, Jonah had forgotten the simple truth that the spirit of kindness could ignite connections, paving pathways toward life-altering changes. He reached for his stub of a pencil, paper resting on his lap, eagerly skimming the charcoal lead to capture the moment of reunion, a testament to restoration and care. As he drew, he contemplated how small moments of empathy could blossom into something greater. He wanted to capture the rush of emotions, the light in Ethan's eyes, the relief on his mother's face. Each stroke of the pencil mirrored a deeper commitment Jonah felt. He would not only share kindness but refuse to let bitterness cloud his heart's potential. His concentration was broken when a familiar voice emerged from the enveloping dusk. "Jonah. Mind if we join you?" Flora, an older woman with silver-streaked hair and wisdom in her smile, knelt next to Jonah, followed by Clara, a vivacious young woman, her laughter unmistakable. They had always been some of the regulars who shared their lives with him every week, exchanging stories and smiles despite their own difficulties. "Good to see you both," Jonah greeted warmly, feeling buoyed by their presence. "I'm just about done here, trying to capture a fleeting moment of joy." "Can I see?" Clara asked, peering over his shoulder. As Jonah turned the drawing towards them, her eyes widened in appreciation. "This is incredible, Jonah. You really have a gift. I wish you could show this in a gallery. You could sell your art." "I barely have the resources to keep myself warm, let alone put my work somewhere nice," he replied with a chuckle, though the idea sparkled in his mind. Flora leaned in, her voice soft yet firm. "But you must think about your talent. Your stories could inspire others, and there are people out there willing to help like you helped that boy today." Jonah felt the sting of memories and the habitual tug of well-meaning pessimism to anchor him down. But he could see the sincerity in Flora's eyes. Perhaps there was something to this notion. If he painted, maybe someone might see his work and share it with others. Maybe kindness could beget kindness again in other, tangible forms. Before he could respond, Clara's enthusiasm took over. "You know, there's an art fair downtown this weekend. We could find a way to showcase your work there. It could be just the opportunity you need. I believe in you, Jonah." Jonah's heart thundered with both hope and fear. The thought of rejection laid heavy in his stomach. But what if no one buys my art? What if I just fail again? Clara reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "You won't know unless you try. Besides, think about how many people would be touched by your gift. Share it with the world. You've already made an impact on one life today, why not extend it to others?" "Yeah, Jonah. Let's do this, Flora encouraged. We have connections in the community, and when help you gather supplies and set up. You don't have to do it alone. Jonah looked at their eager faces, filled with determination and endless encouragement. They truly believed in his potential. With a deep breath, he made a quiet commitment to himself, one that echoed the lesson he'd learned earlier. If kindness could sow the seeds of hope, then surely, his art could blossom too. As the days passed, their supportive spirit grew vibrant, a small community around Jonah formed. Flora and Clara tirelessly promoted his work on social media and reached out to local businesses for sponsorship. All of them pooled together modest funds for art supplies, each contribution enshrined with love and belief. Finally, the day of the art fair arrived. Jonah stood beneath a bright canopy, the beats of cheerful music bubbling around him like a warm embrace. His heart raced in anticipation, both anxious and excited. His drawings hung proudly on the weathered stakes and boards he'd managed to borrow. As visitors began to trickle in, Jonah found himself frozen, stuck at the threshold of his own vulnerability. His art felt like an extension of his soul, each stroke reflecting shadows and light he had carried for so long. Would the transient crowd bother to notice the stories behind the canvas? But slowly, as people assessed the art, laughter broke through the air around him, nudging him into wavering action. He watched as a young couple paused at his display, the woman gasped softly, and the man pointed to a piece depicting a burst of sunflowers against a swirling sky, a piece he had created inspired by memories of warmth, life, and joy. "Wow, look at this," she exclaimed. "It's just breathtaking. Can we get it, please? I feel like we need this in our living room." Jonah felt his heart swell, the soft whispers of his fears dissipating into the sweet air of possibility. As the couple discussed their plans, unaware of the tsunami he felt building inside, someone else began touch, then another. Each viewer who lingered offered a word of admiration, each voice felt like a soft breeze unfurling the edges of his soul. By mid-afternoon, a satisfied vendor approached him, smoking a faint cigar wrapped in nostalgia. "I've seen your art from across the yard. The way you capture emotion is something else, my friend. I want to buy this piece right here." He pointed to Jonah's sunflower sketch. "Really?" Jonah stammered, unsure whether to display shock or joy. "You'd like this one?" "Absolutely. I'll gladly pay $750 for it. I'll frame it and give it a good home." "There's life in your art, my friend," the vendor smiled, reaching for his wallet. Flora and Clara squeezed Jonah's shoulders, encouragement palpable through their smiles. As the vendor peeled off the bills and handed them to Jonah, a sum that felt like a small fortune, tears prickled at his eyes. Maybe he could use these funds for even better supplies or a proper meal for once. But the weight of kindness continued to ripple through him. Within minutes, another woman approached and purchased a pair of his smaller sketches, another $300, and a gentleman who had been listening and offered to commission a larger piece for a small gallery downtown for $1,200. Jonah felt a rush of emotions welling within, a mixture of disbelief, elation, and gratitude. His art had not just sold, it had wove threads of connections he had only dreamed about. By the end of the day, his total earnings exceeded $2,000, far beyond what he ever thought possible. He was no longer just a beggar, he was now Jonah, an artist, a contributor to a world full of colors and stories. As the fair wound down and evening began to envelop Maplewood, tears of gratitude streamed down Jonah's face. The echoes of laughter and applause filled the air alongside the warmth of the fading sun, illuminating a deeper promise within himself. He would continue to share his art, not just for financial gain, but to honor the kindness that set him on this unexpected journey. With Clara and Flora at his side, Jonah vowed to use part of his earnings to support others in his position, buying them meals, art supplies, and perhaps even a chance to showcase their own stories in this city that felt so vibrant. He knew that as he flourished, so too could others in need of hope. The colors of his world shifted, from shades of gray and despair to a vibrant palette of potential and compassion. And it was kindness, he realized as he looked at the faces around him that evening, that could serve as a brush, creating connections, building generosity, and transforming lives, one act at a time. As the sun sank beneath the horizon, casting a final glow across Maplewood, Jonah felt an unfamiliar clarity wash over him, a sensation both exhilarating and frightening. His hands still trembled from the unexpected success at the art fair, and his heart swelled with a joy that felt as though it might burst. The weight of despair that had once anchored him to the ground began to lift, replaced by a buoyancy he thought had long eluded him. Clara and Flora accompanied him on the walk home, their laughter and chatter echoing in the cool evening air. Each step felt lighter, propelled by the newfound hope blossoming within him. Jonah couldn't help but steal glances toward the vibrant sketches he'd sold, still encapsulated in the memories of the joyful faces who had admired his work. "You know, Jonah," Clara initiated, her eyes shining with enthusiasm, "this isn't just a single event. You have the potential to create an entire movement. Imagine exhibiting your work in galleries across the city. Perhaps even mentoring young artists who seek the same kind of hope you found today." Jonah pushed his hands into the pockets of his tattered coat, unable to suppress the smile curling at the corners of his mouth. "I've spent so many years convinced that my talent was too raw, too unpolished to be seen. But after today, I can't help but wonder if there's something more I could offer, not just for myself, but for others, too." Flora beamed at him. "That's the spirit. Your kindness has taken root, and I can see it flourishing. True art flows from the well of experience and compassion. You embody that." Inspired by their encouragement, Jonah felt a resolve crystallizing within him. Why not use both his art and the newfound finances to give back, just as kindness had been given to him when he needed it most? The thought pushed him further along his path, urging him to embrace the unshakable connections he was making. In the following days, as Jonah settled into a rhythm of painting, he allowed his imagination to flow freely onto the canvas. Armed with the earnings from the fair, he gathered limited supplies for others, the scraps of paint left over from his work and a few brushes that had seen better days. Just as he had dreamed, they would serve to show those in need of a spark that creativity didn't have to exist solely the realm of privilege. With Clara and Flora by his side, they set out together to the local shelter, where Jonah had once found warmth and hosted art therapy workshops for those struggling to find their own voice. Bringing a collection of supplies, including canvases, colorful paints, and the tools needed to craft something from nothing, Jonah felt powerful, sharing his passion and cultivating a space that echoed both heart and imagination. "All right, everyone," Jonah called out one sunny Saturday morning, standing before a small group of curious faces in the shelter's common room. "Today, we're diving into the world of colors and themes. You'll see how the simplest brush stroke can hold the weight of our stories." Hands shot up, eager to join in, and he noticed a glimmer of excitement ripple through the room. This wasn't just about painting, this was about kindling connections and sharing experiences that could foster tremendous resilience. As the group dived into creating, Jonah shared not just instructions but revealed his own experiences, the struggles he had overcome. "I once sat where you are now," he confessed, gesturing to the canvas in front of him. "Feeling lost and invisible, like there was no one to connect with. But art has saved me. It taught me to embrace the toughest pieces of my story and turn them into something beautiful." The energy in the room swelled as laughter and chatter filled the air. Jonah could see the faces of his friends from before, the lost and dispossessed, transforming as they found joy in the process of painting, lovingly tending to their creations like seeds planted in fertile soil. Weeks turned into months, and Jonah's art classes at the shelter began to grow in popularity. Each week numerous individuals, families, children, and other struggling souls flocked to the sessions, drawn together by a common hunger for connection. Jonah grew increasingly aware not just of their artistic progress but also the blossoming friendships, the roots of support growing from their shared experiences. He realized that every stroke of the brush was not just about pigment on canvas, it was a chance to regain self-worth, to push through, and exhibit personal growth. He embraced each moment, caring for both his and the tiny communities he nurtured. As he painted, so flourished the joy within others. One afternoon, while tidying up the workshop's corner, Clara pulled him aside with an inspired gleam in her eye. "What you're doing here, Jonah, it's incredible. Have you thought about hosting an art show to celebrate the work created by everyone? You could even have it at the gallery that first showcased your paintings." Jonah felt a rush of pride but also the stirrings of trepidation. An art show? For everyone? But what if no one understands the stories fueled into each piece? Everyone will connect, I assure you, Clara persisted. You've created a supportive community. When people see that real lives are behind those things, they will feel the impact. This could amplify the kindness you've given. Then it dawned on him, this was no longer just a platform for himself. This could be a launchpad for everyone who entered the workshop. Jointly, they could share their lives, painting their hopes, struggles, and victories in one collective breath while becoming a tapestry woven from their experiences. The exhilaration of the idea ignited a fire in Jonah. For the next 3 weeks, they mobilized the energy of their collective creativity. Jonah helped categorize all the works of art produced in the workshop. Each person shared their individual stories, heartfelt moments that drove them to create. With Flora's help, they established an exhibition at the local gallery, aptly titled A Brush of Kindness. The space echoed dynamic colors and rich narratives, illustrating the shared journeys of struggle and triumph felt within the shelter's walls. On the opening night, attendees filled the gallery amidst warm conversation. Jonah stood proudly by the entrance, accepting hugs and handshakes from old friends and new faces alike. The atmosphere vibrated with possibility, each guest drawn deeper into the compelling world of art and the stories whispering from each brilliantly crafted piece. As they moved from canvas to canvas, Jonah listened as individuals absorbed the tales intertwined in the art, sharing laughter, tears, and reflections. By the end of the evening, he witnessed a beautiful transformation, the promise of hope ignited through the power of art and kindness unfurling like petals in full bloom. When the exhibition concluded, Jonah sat down to record the impact he had witnessed. He felt transformed, where once despair had rooted him, now stood resilience and compassion. Unbeknownst to him, the kindness he extended to Ethan had birthed ripples that carried through the lives of many others, bridging connections woven tightly by shared experiences and empathy. As part of the proceeds from the exhibition, Jonah decided to establish a small fund to assist aspiring artists and provide scholarships for those in need of art tools and classes, a legacy forged from the very essence of kindness passed down to him. He embraced the opportunity to contribute to the community that had nurtured him and his artistic spirit. With newfound wisdom and a handful of friendships that felt more like family, he felt invincible, inspired to continue giving back as he had once received. He sagely understood that success was not merely a measure of financial gain but also the lives he had touched along the way. Years passed in a beautiful tapestry, filled with struggle and growth alike. Jonah stood amidst his artwork in a serene little studio adorned with colors splashing like laughter. The walls told stories of survival and hope, narrating lessons of kindness through both brush and heart. With a smile as radiant as the sun, he welcomed a new group of eager and adults alike, filled with dreams yet unformed. They were seekers of connection through creativity. And as he shared his journey with them, he felt the heartbeat of a community alive, each pulse echoing the essential lesson he had learned: kindness always cultivates growth, the smallest acts can lead to profound transformations. Remember, Jonah said, his eyes glistening as he looked around at the eager faces in front of him. Art can heal wounds we never knew existed. It connects our hearts, and no matter where you start, there is always beauty waiting to be created. Together, they gathered supplies, laughter ringing in the air with each brush stroke escaping their fingertips, a myriad of colors illuminating the path from one heart to another. As they began, Jonah embraced that transcend maternal lesson radiating in the moments they shared, learning that kindness never truly concludes, it simply finds new forms, new strokes, in an endless canvas that stretches far and wide.